All right. We're doing it. Friday morning. Welcome to Ride With Me. I'm actually home, Friday home studio day, which means I can actually add TikTok to our list of places we're streaming today. I'm trying to add another one onto the roster of places we can go. So today we've got LinkedIn, we got YouTube, we got Facebook, and now TikTok. So 4 places going live all at once. Pretty wild, pretty crazy. First time here. This is my name is Wayne, host of Ride With Me. This is what I normally do, a live show on my ride to work in my car. Chance for me to talk about hot topics, things going on in the world of sports, marketing, combine them, sports marketing as well as media and all sorts of topics that come along sort of in the peripheral of all of those places. So yeah, definitely a lot to talk about. I haven't had a chance to do a show all week. I have been on the road. So I was in DC this week. So East Coast travel. I'm based in San Diego, if you don't know that. So anytime I head to the East Coast, it is definitely a beating on the body. But great week in DC. And excited to be home in time for Memorial Day weekend, long weekend. I'm definitely looking forward to that. But let's dive into it, man. There's so much going on. Today, I decided to sort of focus on revenue and some of the things going on, especially around college athletics. There's a lot of stories in and around the college athletic space. And the first topic, not necessarily only in college, but the Washington Post used AI to analyze a bunch of broadcasts and discovered that gambling was a topic, was referenced every 4 minutes in a broadcast. And look, this is it, man. Like, this is, when there is advertising or sponsors that bring the most money to the table, they're going to get the most references. They're going to get, this is a category that is flush, that continues to find that this is a great place. If you're a sports betting entity, there's no better place to spend your advertising dollars than in a sports broadcast. So you take that coupled with the fact that a large percentage of sports fans enjoy having a little bit of self interest in the game and getting their own dollars put against and having, playing along. So your commentators, even if it isn't a sponsored element, are still working it into the conversation. For a long time, this was sort of the secret, unspoken language in broadcast. And now that it's legal, it's out in the open, and everybody's talking about the fact that fans and gambling entities want you to put your money on the line against live events. And so it's not going anywhere. When you go back through time and you look at all the different, vices that have advertised in sports, they have the dollars and they're going to spend the money, and it's an audience. Again, we keep talking on this show about the power of live sports broadcast. There are not many places where a brand can get access to live audience anymore. It just doesn't exist. It doesn't exist anywhere. So live sports is the place where you've got a locked in audience paying attention, especially live hits and in-venue signage and all the different things. Advertising that goes along with it, sure, that's going to hit as well. But those live mentions in broadcast, that is definitely, really prime real estate to hit an audience that used to be able to hit in primetime TV. Used to be able to hit around local news or different pockets, the drive time radio. You had these built-in traditional spots, right? Like automotive groups used to advertise in the daily newspaper. And I remember getting the newspaper on the weekend, and I couldn't wait to see what deals were out in cars. I love cars. I would spend a lot of time going through the cars, and then I would go through the want ads of the cars. Great. That doesn't exist anymore. That is just not there. You do not have access to that audience anymore. They're gone. They're dispersed. And so you have to find ways to access them. And, we talk about it from a marketing standpoint. We work with brands. How do you get to that audience, right? You're going to try to get there, through like social, or you could do some paid social, you could do organic, you could do different things to try to draw attention. And there's so much, there's innovation in that space coming all the time of how to like actually get someone's attention. You could do sponsors, you could do influencers, right? We're going to use influence. Radio personalities were like the original influencers. That's what you were using on-air live hits for. And now you're seeing it in broadcast as, your play-by-play announcers talking about FanDuel on their broadcast. That's it, man. They're pushing you to it. I mean, you look at all the different ways in which different gambling companies tried to access audience was all through content in different ways, and live sports is no different. So not shocked that the AI analysis, it's so funny. Everybody is, AI is so scary. It's so dangerous. But, I did a whole show on AI last week about, it's just a tool in your tool belt. It doesn't mean it, the drill is always going to work right. You've still got to put human components around it to make sure that the results are what you're looking for. But it is a tool to hopefully be more efficient, to free up time to do more, bigger picture thinking and activation. So anyways, really interesting article. The Washington Post broke that down. But let's dive into college athletics. This is where I want to spend the majority of our time today, because I just think I was having a conversation yesterday on a call, and when I brought up the topic of college athletics, everybody's eyes opened up, because it is ever evolving, ever changing, and it kind of has to be. And it is creating a lot of friction and a lot of, I think, interesting dialogue. That this is what I love to do. So let's do it. All right. So Kentucky announced this week that they're turning their athletic role into a CEO role, taking the traditional duties of an athletic director, coupling it with sort of the duties of a CEO, of almost a startup, if you will. And so when you look at that, I really like this. And I'll just say that off the bat. I think it's really smart for a couple of reasons. Kentucky has declared who they're going to be. This is going to be a business. We are in business. We are in the business of college athletics. We sell college athletics. Making this a CEO has declared to the world, you've now got your business entity with their LLC. They now have a CEO running it. That's where we are. When you couple that with a different story that came out as well around, there was a story also in the Washington Post around how colleges are and universities are having to get rid of smaller sports, right? So like a tennis going away in Arkansas, or different things like that, and smaller sports, non-revenue driving sports having to go away. And this is causing a lot of discord. This is causing a lot of conversation and disagreements over whether this is right or wrong. Back to the Kentucky point, Kentucky has declared what they're going to be. They're going to be a business. This is a profitable entity that needs to drive revenue. Maybe not profitable. They'll probably get to the non-profitable region, but it needs to drive revenue and profit, I'm assuming, along the way. That's an assumption. But when you get into some of these other schools that are debating, do we keep the tennis program? There was a line in the article is, what's more valuable, our tennis program or a wide receiver for the football team? This is like any business now. Any business has to determine who they are and what they're there for. If your athletic program at a university, which way back, your athletic program at the university was to provide athletic competition for your students, and the athletic director was there to ensure that happened. right? Getting great coaches, recruiting great athletes so you could have winning teams to represent your university. And along the way, sponsorships started to creep in. Once NIL opens up, once we are allowing athletes to monetize their value, until it is truly secured to say, hey, it is only for marketing the value of you as a name, image, and likeness. And now we put a number on that and say, hey, every university, this is the max you can spend. Now you're going to create these haves and have-nots. You're going to have schools that can do that. You're going to have schools that can actually drive that kind of revenue. It's amazing. They're going to hit that number every year, find ways to push even beyond it, I'm sure. But they're going to get there. And you're going to have another right underneath that, a group of schools that's going to try real hard, and they're going to do everything they can to get there. But at what cost? At what cost is it? Do we say we don't need a nationally competitive tennis program, because we need a wide receiver? We got to compete on Saturdays, and that is the most important thing. Again, it goes back to, what are you there for? What are you all about? What is the goal of the program? What is the goal of this entity? If the entity is to win at football or drive the most revenue, let's start there. If the goal is to be the most competitive college football program out there, that's the goal. And you have to just be honest about it. I think one of the biggest problems that you're seeing people get into right now is they're not coming out and declaring it. They're not coming out and saying, this is what it's all about. This is what our athletic program is all about. Football and basketball. That's where we're going to put all our eggs in that basket. We're going after it. Everything else, maybe. I can tell you 10 years ago, a lot of schools were using football and the revenue generating sports to fund all of the other sports. That's amazing. It's great. It gave a ton of athletes an opportunity to compete. And what it did create was sort of this friction inside of universities where the football and basketball athletes are going, wait. We're driving all this value and it's getting funneled out to all these other programs. That's not fair. I don't know. Is it or isn't it fair? Those are the questions you have to decide. You have to, at the top of all of these institutions, that discussion, and then decision has to be made. What are we all about? It takes, once you determine that, then you can communicate it to everybody else internally first. Hey, this is what we're going to be all about. We are all about winning on Saturdays in the fall. All in. We're putting all of our eggs in the basket. Or we're all about winning college basketball. We want to get to the championship. We want to win a national championship college basketball. We're going all in. This is what we're going to be all about. We're going to do both. We're going to be a basketball and football school. We're going to go after it. Or we want to be a place where athletes, college athletes, can come compete across the board. And we want to build a athletic program that supports holistic sports programs. I think that's what you're going to start to see. You're going to start to see these top tier revenue driving schools start to move up almost into a pro type of program, driven by CEOs, driven by, chief revenue officers that are there to drive them, just like you see in the pro ranks, just like you see in the NFL and Major League Baseball, NBA, NHL, MLS. All these programs are driven by CEOs, team presidents. You got president of the sports over here, and you're driving the revenue to fund what has to get done. And then you're going to have all of these other things over here. This separation, I think, is probably what you're going to see at some point. You're going to see programs go all in up here, and then you're going to see other programs go, you know what, we do want to be, we want to go back to being a place where our students can compete and our students can play and compete in the sport that they love under our umbrella and part of our university. There's nothing wrong with either direction, by the way. They're both great as long as you know who you want to be and what you're going to be and you communicate it clearly. The problem that people get into is when they don't communicate clearly the goals and what they're trying to be and where they're trying to go. And then there's confusion. Without clarity, you build confusion. You build confusion internally with your teams, with your staff, with your administration, with your students, and then externally with your fans, with your alumni, with your sponsors. You want everybody to know what you're all about. When I worked on the team side, on the pro team side, one of the biggest breakthroughs we had ever, and now consulting teams, one of the biggest breakthroughs that you will ever see sports team have is the moment they realize who they're going to try to become, what this entity is going to be and what it's going to be known for. We are going to be this. Stand up, declare it, and own it every day, all day. From ownership to your team president, to your C-level suite, every person, all the way down to the person checking the ticket at the front gate. This is who we are going to be. This is what we're all about. This is what matters to us. Success will be judged on these few criteria. Everything else will waterfall off of that. That's the game. That is the game. It doesn't matter the industry, by the way. Little plug for my podcast, Lessons from Sports. That lesson from sports teams applies to any business. This is who we're going to be. Everybody knows what we're trying to be. Let's go after it with everything we have. Let's go all in on this. Let's be this and let everything else kind of fall off from there. Love that. And so that's where this story out of Kentucky, I'm excited for them. Declaring what you're going to do, who you're going to be, what it's all about, why this new role is different. Yes, all the duties of an athletic director coming along. But also you're running a business. You're running a business. You're running a P&L that needs to sustain itself, that needs to drive and support. And then you're going to put people in positions to make the right moves. When you own a sports team, you're trusting people on the sports side of that business to make the decisions. You're hiring a president of sports op or a general manager to say, yeah, this is the best lineup construction for this, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. That's what you got to do in the college side. Going out, you're recruiting. Now you're recruiting with a checkbook, and you've got to make those numbers balance. Same on the pro side. You know, right? We would work. We knew how much revenue we could generate. We knew what the market could bear, how much we were taking and how much room we had to go. And you said, hey, what happens if we sign this star player and we spend hundreds of millions of dollars on this player? Could you return against it? Well, we think it's probably a lift of this. That's where we think the lift is. Does that add up? What if that player helps us win 3 more games? What if that player helps us win 10 more games? These are the numbers that you have to look at and determine, could we generate more by doing this? So when you look at an Arkansas situation and the question that says, that was in the article, what's more valuable, a tennis program or a wide receiver? I go back to my original question. Who and what do you want to be? You want to win on Saturdays? And you believe if you're trying to drive the number and hit this number and drive, where's alumni support coming from? Where's our sponsorship support coming from? Where are the dollars flowing from? If the dollars are flowing from football support and all from football support, you know the answer to the question. The secondary part of that will be, hey, could we waterfall off of that and still support the tennis program? Obviously not right now. We can't. Obviously we can't afford both. We can afford a wide receiver or an entire tennis program. We've decided we're going to go wide receiver based on this article. But that makes sense. That's just the math. We have X amount of dollars in our bucket. We can only support so much. We have to make some tough decisions. I think where people get into trouble is not declaring what they're trying to do or not knowing where they're trying to go. You got to have the big picture discussion and decision before you start making lower level decisions. Not that this is a lower level decision, but it is lower than where we're trying to go. The decision of wide receiver versus tennis program is lower in the tier of ideas, is lower than what are we all about? What is this university's athletic program all about? Who are we trying to be? What are we trying to become? What are we going to be known for? How are we going to drive this ship? How are we going to make it go forward? How are we going to get to where we want to go? Well, to get to where you want to go, you have to know where that is. And once you do, then you go after it. Then you say, hey, we've declared we're going to be a national champion in college football. Declaring it. That's our goal. At all costs, we're going for that. We want you to come along. We want you to be a part of it. There's going to be some tough decisions along the way. We're going to have to make some calls that may not be very popular. But as long as everybody understands, that's what we're going for. And you can look your alumni base in the face. You can look your sponsors, all your NIL supporters, everybody. Any person that's writing you a check to support what you're all about needs to know what that support's going to. Talk to anybody who invests in any business. I wrote you a check. It's towards this goal that you're going towards. How are we progressing towards that goal? You need more money? Understood. How did you use the last bit of money I gave you? Did it work? What did you learn from it? Are we better off today because of it? It's like any business. I mean, it's pretty simple. So I think this is honestly one of the most exciting times to watch. I love the sort of movements and trying to figure it all out. The other thing that is really interesting to me in all that is the deal that Duke just signed for their basketball games to stream. Smart. Monetizing content. That's the other piece. That's also going to create this sort of separation of programs. There are programs that can warrant a national or international, I don't know how the deal works, but streaming program, brilliant. There are only a few basketball programs that could actually get that. So they're going to have that money flowing in. Great. Now, where do you take that? Now, if you don't have that means, you can't get to that level of signing that type of a deal to stream all your games at that dollar amount. Well, now you start to create those separations. So if you're in that next tier down or a tier below that, you're looking at the Duke deal going, how do we even compete with that? How do I even play along with that? You got to get creative. Right. And you've got to start finding ways to create content that isn't going to be streamed on Netflix or Amazon or any of these massive platforms. You got to find a way to engage people with content in a different manner. You've got to get crafty. You've got to get, think about, on the pro side, I say all the time, doesn't matter what part of a professional sports team you want to look at. When you look at a league, you name it, you could say, ticket sales, marketing, sponsorship, operations, security, doesn't matter. There are 5 teams at the top of every category. And there are 5 teams at the bottom of every category. Some teams might repeat in both places, in every category. You don't know. There's some organizations that are just really well run. And there are some organizations that are just not. And then there's the middle. It's the 80-10-10 rule. It is clear as day. You'll get anywhere between 3 to 5 teams at the top, 3 to 5 teams at the bottom, and then everybody in the middle. And those 3 to 5 at the top are going to push the limits. They're going to push the boundaries. They're going to set the new standards. It's incredible. Way back in the day when teams were building apps, when I was in the NFL, there were only a few teams. Everybody was getting out ahead of it. There was a couple teams early. We meet. And everybody says, oh, I need an app too. My owner now needs it. We need an app. Whoop. And there are teams that even didn't get the budget for it in year 1 and then slowly got on board later when it was mandatory. You had to have one. It's the same in everything. You could look at every Every league, every category of business, there are your top and your bottom and everybody in the middle. And so same going to happen here in college athletics. Those teams in the middle need to get a little bit more crafty. If you're an executive at one of those lower tiered teams that don't have the budgets of the teams that are crushing it at the top, you got to get crafty. You see things that they're doing, you got to find different ways to get there to keep up. And so to try to climb that ladder to get yourself in there, even if you don't have the budgets, you can get there creatively, thinking differently, trying to find a way to push beyond it. So it's crazy the what's going on in the world of college athletics. And the one of the articles that I was reading was talking about how March Madness is now bringing when it was the Washington Post article that broke down this sort of tennis or wide receiver comment was talking about the money that's coming in, $300 million in additional revenue with beer, wine, and alcohol sponsorships around March Madness. It's a patch, right? It's a $300 million patch. Everybody has to analyze those decisions. Do we bring that in? Do we not bring that in? Do we spend that money? Do we accept that money, and at what cost? And then where that money goes and how it all gets broken out. So yeah, pretty wild. Definitely crazy times in college athletics. The last story that I was going to hit on was around is a radio story. And so it was, hold on, I'm gonna pull it up because I was reading the article this morning around I wanted to pull it up because around ABC radio signing off officially. But I wanted to pull up the quote because CBS radio, my apologies. CBS radio signing off because I thought this quote was pretty wild. It was on Barrett Media. They had this quote and it said, CBS News Radio didn't die of natural causes. It died of malpractice, a fundamental misunderstanding of its value and its role in the greater media ecosystem. Is what killed it. One more time, because I totally botched that. CBS News Radio didn't die of natural causes. It died of malpractice, a fundamental misunderstanding of its value and its role in the greater media ecosystem is what killed it. Wow. That is a strong quote from Garrett Searhite on Barrett Media. I've been talking about this for a little bit on platforms, but I've been talking about it in business for a long time. My time in radio taught me a lot of things. One, working in an industry that underpays its people and would give you as a young person an opportunity to play at a level that I was totally not qualified for as a young person. It was unbelievable. I got to do things and get opportunities that were light years ahead of my time and experience. And so I'm always grateful for that. The company I worked for was very good to me. I had a great run working in radio in my time in Boston. But as the world changed and it evolved and the media landscape evolved, radio and many of its executives and many of its talent resisted the internet, resisted social media, resisted where this was all going. Facts. Watching media talents tell you they don't pay me to get on Twitter. They don't pay me to engage outside of my 4-hour time slot. That's not what I get paid for. Okay. You're missing the opportunity to engage. And I get it. It's a business. But again, back to everything. If you're not waking up every day thinking how you're going to better serve your customers And for the talent, it's the listeners. Obviously, it's the sponsors and the advertisers. That's where the money's coming from. But it's the listeners. It's the audience. It's the same we talk about sports and all of this. You're serving the audience. The minute they stop watching live sports, everybody on the sports side is in trouble. The minute they stop listening to drive time radio, the business is in trouble. We all know the answers here. We all know the results. So how do we adjust? Sorry, I got a lot of streams going on here. I'm making sure everything's working. And this piece that they wrote today about CBS News Radio, everything that it survived, the changes of the world and all of the things that it did, incredible. But over the last 10 years, if you were not evolving with the audience, if you were not finding ways to connect in meaningful ways, authentic and meaningful ways, you lost your credibility. You lost your angle. You lost your audience. The audience moved on. And in some cases, especially for a news radio source, went off to places where it probably wasn't as authentic of news, or maybe it was slanted in a different direction, or maybe whatever it was. I'm not a political person, but like these news entities had a leg up on everybody else. They had the closest access to most of the stuff with the infrastructure and the personalities to connect. They were just late to the party. They were in a party and they had the control. They were running the door. They had the gatekeeping capability to determine who told stories and who didn't. Mass media companies when I was coming up, you needed to get into a mass media company to do this. If I wanted to sit in front of a microphone and blab on, I needed someone else to say I was good enough to do it. Now today, I don't need anybody to tell me I'm good enough to do it, but the audience will determine whether I'm good enough to do this or not. And I can decide whether I want to keep doing it or not. I can do it with no audience, or I could grow a massive audience. Either way, I can determine whether I want to keep talking into a microphone or not. Back then, they controlled the gate. So you needed to get in and work your way up inside of their gates. Well, the gates started to fall down. They started to slowly wither away. And instead of looking at it and going, oh, we should evolve, they tried to discredit those on the other sides of the gates. Oh, podcasts aren't us, or the people on Facebook aren't us, or they don't have the credibility that we have. You don't determine that. See, that's what changed. The people who were running those mass media companies for so long had so much control on who had credibility that when the audience got to determine that later, they were left holding radio towers going, what do I do? but I've got this thing that disseminates information. And the consumer said, yeah, but I've got this thing right here that I can catch all the information I need, and I can listen and I can watch and I can determine who I get my news and information from. That is just what, like, that changed everything. Now, you can see media entities that are still doing really well. You can see sports talk shows that are doing great, engaging with their audience. Are they only engaging? Like, I will tell you, like, seeing shows, I can go back to 2008, pitching radio companies on live streaming their shows on YouTube. 2008. We should set up some cameras. We can live switch it. I can put a switcher in there. We can have one person live switching that show. You're crazy. Why would we ever let people watch our stuff there when we need them to listen to the radio? We get paid on radio ads. Okay. The more we can engage with these folks, the more we can keep our audience, and remember that the audience is what makes us, it gives us the ability, because they're going to find something else somewhere else. If you watch, I worked at WEI in Boston, which was the #1 sports station in the city and at times in the country. And you watch, there was a little startup called Barstool Sports. That was a newspaper nobody was paying any attention to. that slowly started to come up. And then WEI got competition from 98.5, the Sports Hub, right? EEI gets crushed. 98.5 blows right by them because they went on the FM stick. They brought in younger, more aggressive talent, and they just took the next generation of sports fan and gave them an alternative. And then Barstool comes on and blows them all out of the water. They become a national powerhouse in sports media. Part of My Take becomes one of the top sports podcasts, sports audio programs in the country. Becomes a visual medium along with it as they put cameras on their podcast. They put cameras on their audio programming and connected with their audience socially all day. Continuously engaging, continuously connecting, continuously having conversations with their fans and their audience. They didn't just go where their dollars were. You're right. Their dollars were coming from their podcast advertisers. Great. They knew their job was to engage that audience throughout the day. That was the job. And it evolved and it changed. And so back to, the story today of the sign off of CBS News Radio. Were they doing that? Were they late to the dance? Were they early? Were they getting on? Did they have talent that was engaging all the time? And then did they have an ecosystem, a business ecosystem? Now you've got that part. Then you have the business ecosystem that values that. That's where this article went into, saying they were looking at it as overhead, not as an asset to go out and monetize against this authenticity and this connectivity. Look, the business has changed. The access to audience is at all of our disposal. I'm in my house. I built a studio in my house. I've got everything I need. It wasn't very expensive. I did this a couple of years ago. I built this setup here in my house in 2019. I was telling this story yesterday, working for professional sports teams, being tasked with creating more content, but more efficiently, seeing where the world was going. And I saw all these kids streaming on Twitch in 2019, crushing numbers. And I'm going, there is a way in which somebody in their bedroom is able to produce a live show that is streaming with content on the main screen and a little green screen cut out of a person in the corner playing the game and talking to their fans, talking to their audience. And I'm like, there's lessons to be learned there. So I literally researched it and found every piece of equipment that a kid would need, or person. I was just watching all these different people. I always say kids because I'm old now, but like watching these people stream live, engage with their audience while they're playing a game. And other people go, I don't get it. Who wants to watch someone else play video games? I just don't get it. You don't need to get it. There's obviously enough people that, they were watching them play the game. And same as, I don't understand who wants to watch other people play basketball. I play basketball. Why would I want to watch someone else play basketball? It's the exact same thing. The only difference is the person playing the game is engaging with you in real time, and they're having conversation, and they're creating characters of themselves and outside characters. And they're bringing those characters into the conversation, and they're engaging their fans, and they're having fun. Pretty amazing. So back to all of this. I built this in my house. I have the ability to do this on a Friday morning and open up and talk about what's going on and share my thoughts. That's the game today. And sometimes, unfortunately, the massive overhead and infrastructure is a negative in today's world, being held back by all of the expense and the costs of the massive studios and the engineers and just at one point, I was tasked with creating a live daily show and met with some production folks. These were pros, been doing it a long time. They're like, listen, to do a live talking heads talk show, we're looking at minimum $1 million a year. Whoa, before talent, production cost $1 million a year. And I'm like, whoa, what? How? I don't have that. I don't have that budget. Well, we need a floor director. We need 3 camera operators. We need a technical director. We need a director. We need, talent coordinator. We need all these things. Whoa. My boss said to me, hey, I brought it to him like, hey, here's what I've been doing the research. This is what it's going to take. It's like, I need you to forget everything you just heard. How would you do it if you were just, still working in radio and had radio budgets? How would you create that show today? All the things you wanted to do at the radio station about following our talent with robotic cameras and all the things you wanted to do. And you said you could do it with one person. Yes, for sure. Then do that. And that's what I did. We created it. And then I replicated it when I got to San Diego. We got down literally one person. Started with audio, got the audio right. Then we put in, stationary cameras. Gosh, now we're live switching cameras. Cool. Then we made the cameras move. And we had robotic cameras. And so now each camera had sort of set shots so you could move around. And then we added a B-roll package. So as we're talking about a subject, he could quickly pull that up and boom. Within a year, we were producing a multi-camera live show, audio, video, full B-roll packages, rolling it all back, graphics, you name it, taking calls. We could do it all. It's unbelievable. All one producer. So for a 10th of what they said it would have cost, we were able to do it. And that's gotten more and more and more efficient as time has gone on. Now I can do it by myself. I'm here. Here we go. This is zero cost for me. My internet, it's on. Okay. Now the gear, not all that expensive. A microphone, can run that straight in your computer. I have a board, but you don't need it. And your laptop has a camera. Your phone has a camera. I mean, this thing right here is the most powerful tool in the world. You can do anything. So that infrastructure that they're all carrying at these massive media entities is a little bit of a challenge because now you've got to put so much dollars behind before you even break even just to cover your overhead. And it's literally zero difference to the consumer versus what I'm doing right here. Zero. If somebody finds me credible and entertaining and authentic, I reside right next to that CBS News radio personality on the feed. We appear next to each other. And if the consumer, the person looking at it, goes, oh, well, Wayne said that. Let me hear Wayne's take on that. Versus that, you're able to build your own credibility. Now, does it have the monster credibility of a big CBS logo behind me? Absolutely not. But this next generation, these younger, that doesn't even care. It actually has probably some of them a negative connotation. Oh, that's not authentic. It's powered by some corporation and which is scary for our generation because we're like, well, no, because that came from an authentic news source. And a lot of these kids don't even think that stuff's like a turnoff now. So this massive infrastructure you've created actually has negative implications, which is really wild to think about. But that's a whole nother topic for another day. I am way over time. I got excited today. Yeah, thanks for checking it out. If you checked it out, this is Ride With Me. Today I get to work from home. So my ride is just sitting in my studio, which is cool. I've got a bunch of client calls to get to, but I really appreciate it if you stop by and hung out. We're on TikTok today. So what's up, TikTok? First time taking Ride With Me to TikTok. And practicing live streams on TikTok, getting ready for this. I can't do that while in the car. I haven't been able to figure that part out. But here in the studio, I can do TikTok. We got LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube all live as well. So appreciate everybody who took the time to check it out today. I will see you guys after the long weekend. Have a great one. Thanks.